Do you know, is there anything more nauseating than watching scores of privileged elites fly off in their private jets every 12 months to some luxury destination where they are wined and dined at taxpayer expense for 2 weeks, only for them to then tell us, the little people, to stop going on holiday, or stop using so much electricity, or stop eating so much meat, or stop driving your car? I don't think there is. Worrying about the climate is the preserve of those wealthy enough to be able to do so. For the rest of us, we're just trying to survive and pay the bills. So it was encouraging to see that the latest Conference of the Parties, or COP, meeting has been roundly ridiculed as a complete flop. I've been covering these junkets since the late 2000s, when I was writing my climate blog, way back when COP15 in Copenhagen was the news. In 2009, like today, it was all smoke and mirrors. Big announcements that they had to tackle climate change and that we had to abandon fossil fuels in order to save the planet. It was complete nonsense then, just as it is complete nonsense now. If you listen to the BBC or the ABC or read The Guardian, God help you, you genuinely believe that the climate was at a point of crisis. But as I'll show you in this video, if you look at the metrics, there is zero evidence of anything like a crisis. Nobody except perhaps a few nutcases like the Just Stop Oil morons and mad Guardian journalists think the climate is doing anything different from what it was 50 or 100 years ago. Yes, there might be a bit of very mild warming, but it's probably mostly natural and it certainly isn't a crisis. And the benefits almost certainly outweigh the drawbacks. It's about time we started pushing back against the evil of this economy and humanity-wrecking madness. Welcome back to MGUY, British engineer and lawyer, now Sydney-based YouTuber. If you'd like to watch all my new videos free from interruptions and annoying adverts, like this one, sign up to become a Patreon member for just a few dollars a month and you can watch them all there. You'll get early access to ad-free versions of my videos and check out the other benefits of becoming a member, like merchandise, behind-the-scenes videos and other bonus content. Link in the description or scan the QR code on screen. By the time you watch this, no doubt YouTube will have slapped one of their petty little warning notices on this video, but quite frankly, I don't care. The climate's doing exactly what it has done for millions of years and will do for millions more. In a minute, I'll show you a paper that indicates that virtually all indicators of a climate crisis are nothing of the sort. But first, every year the COP circus rolls around, and every year fewer people care. The Telegraph eviscerates the entire clown show. COP30 was an unmitigated virtue-signalling disaster. The Global Climate Change Summit has become an out-of-touch echo chamber. For the first time ever in the history of the COP summit, the US has not sent an official delegation to what is regarded as the most important climate event on the planet. Some horrified environmentalists declared that the failure of one of the world's biggest polluters to attend was a significant setback for climate progress. As if that humiliation wasn't enough, in his place came an unofficial delegation led by California's wet lettuce-in-chief, Governor Gavin Newsom. Others saw Donald Trump's absence as a blessing. Without the presence of a man who has dismissed climate change as an expensive hoax, the conference could get on with the business at hand, negotiating agreements that will limit global warming, they said. In the end, it wasn't to be, and Trump's decision to give the global gathering a miss now looks remarkably prescient, so much so that it is surely time to end this pointless virtue-signalling talking shop. The US President's detractors will say his decision to shun COP is further evidence of his climate change denial. Or perhaps the reason is more simple, that he could see it would be a complete waste of time. The powwow in the Brazilian Amazon was the 30th iteration of the UN-sponsored event. Well-meaning organisers and attendees believed this version would finally end with some genuine, nailed-on commitments to phase out fossil fuels. In the run-up, politicians and environmentalists waxed lyrical about ambitious pledges, but unsurprisingly, it wasn't to be. Yet again they came away empty-handed as China, Russia and India, together with a long list of Arab nations, refused to sign up to fossil fuel cuts. The likes of Ed Miliband will dispute this downbeat assessment of the event. The talks represented a step forward, he claimed, despite them ending without a deal to stop drilling for oil and burning coal. Yet the Energy Secretary knows full well that a handful of vague promises to consider reductions at some point in the distant future count for absolutely nothing once everyone heads home. Most of what was agreed was either full of loopholes or relies on voluntary commitments that are in no way binding or enforceable. If Green campaigners were hoping for firm action for once, what they got represented the epitome of inaction. If delegates and organisers were truly serious about tackling climate change, they'd scrap all the virtue signalling and hysteria around fossil fuels and start by addressing the massive limitations of renewables, because it is those restrictions that are preventing countries from weaning themselves off oil and gas. This is the elephant in the room in the climate change debate. It isn't enough to keep ignoring it at the same time as repeating the mantra that the world must build even more wind turbines and solar panels. They're too expensive and they don't keep the lights on. One day that may not be the case, but in the meantime, green energy requires massive subsidies and as a consequence, people's bills keep going up. It is unsustainable and these problems cannot be magicked away by the wishful thinking of angry alarmist activists. Indeed so, net zero is impoverishing us all, but those with the mind virus continue to bleat that renewables are the cheapest form of energy and use tricks and sleight of hand to back it up, claiming that it's in fact gas and coal that's the most expensive. It's all lies, and how they can say it with a straight face is nothing short of a miracle. Just look at the prices of electricity correlated against percentage of renewables and you'll see the real culprit. All of this is predicated on the existence of a crisis in the climate. But what is a climate crisis? It's not defined. It's just a term that's thrown about in order to provoke an emotional response. And a new paper has attempted to quantify the effect of climate impacts to put it in perspective. No doubt the paper will be trashed by the green blob, but it's worth reading in full, link in the description. Let's go through some of the sections of the paper. Firstly, let's look at floods, and far from floods becoming worse, there's almost no trend present. This shows the annual inundated area and number of flood disaster events, and deaths from flooding. What about tropical cyclones and hurricanes? Surely they're getting worse, right? There is almost zero trend either in the number of these events, or the total energy accumulated in them. But I bet they're becoming more destructive, aren't they? Well, no, in fact, they're flat or even declining, even when you look on a regional basis. But what about climate-related disasters as a whole caused by weather-related events? Barely any trend again when you look at both the numbers and the deaths. Well, I'm sure it's affecting people's health, isn't it, with more diseases and injuries? Again, no, it's not, with the daily or disability-adjusted life year count remaining remarkably stable, and the age standardised daily rate actually falling when accounting for population growth and ageing. Well, how about waterborne diseases and vector-borne diseases? They're bound to be increasing thanks to the climate crisis. Well, sorry to say, but both of these metrics are declining, probably due to improved medical care and access to drugs. Things for which you need a cheap and abundant supply of energy, by the way. Yes, but the heat from climate change must be killing people, right? Most of the temperature-related mortality burden was attributable to the contribution of cold. The effect of days of extreme temperature was substantially less than that attributable to milder but non-optimum weather. This evidence has important implications for the planning of public health interventions to minimise the health consequences of adverse temperatures and for predictions of future effect in climate change scenarios. And also due to improvements in standard of living, allowing for heating and air conditioning systems, which are also things that require a cheap and abundant supply of energy. But climate change is destroying crops and harvests, isn't it? Well, no, again, because the effect of climate change is swamped by other factors. Due to complex interactions with socio-economic conditions, climate-induced trends in crop yields and productions do not directly transmit to crop prices, availability of food, or nutrition status. This complexity, in addition to the limited availability of long-term data, has so far impeded the detection and attribution of a long-term impact of climate change on associated food security indicators. There are plenty more examples where the narrative from the climate warriors is that we're facing imminent disaster. But the reality is, as usual, far more nuanced and almost imperceptible above the noise of other factors. The paper concludes, since the observed emergence of most of the CID's climate impact drivers presented in IPCC Table 1212 and confirmed by the analysed updated time series, as well as most of the RINDS response indicators in Table 1, do not exhibit worsening trends, our overall view is that the climate crisis, as portrayed by many media sources today, is not evident yet. Nevertheless, it remains extremely important to improve and standardise monitoring activities and to develop adaptation strategies based on high-quality data. Bottom line, there simply is no crisis in the climate. There is no urgency to decarbonise in order to avoid a climate catastrophe, and as a result, there is no urgent need for mad net zero policies to force us to abandon fossil fuels by 2050. Of course, we should look for cleaner sources of energy, but to force the planet to stop using coal and oil in less than 3 decades is sheer insanity. Tackling climate change or solving the climate crisis is a luxury we can no longer afford, and the sooner we move on from it, the better.